Good. Well, just as I give a sort of just a slight minute more for people to rejoin, but just got those parallel sessions up on the screen again for you, so that you can see essentially what you didn't see. So you can see the talks that were going on in the other sessions, just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the things that might be chatted about as we just do a bit of a plenary now. So the way that we did plenaries last year, and again it seemed to work well, so I've kept it for this year, is to do it in a kind of fairly structured way. And so I'm just going to put this slide up here. What I'm interested in is, in the parallel session that you've just been in, what stood out for you? So things that might disrupt narratives, and interestingly, the word disruption was definitely used in one of the talks that I sat in on. What was challenging about what you heard? What was surprising? What raised questions for you? And then things around so what, and this is the really important thing I was referring to at the beginning of the morning, really, in terms of sort of very well having these projects, but so what? Where could the work go next? What ideas did it spark for you in your own practice? So what I'd be really interested in now, and the way we did this last year, is this. What I'm going to do is literally for 2 minutes give you the chat box. So in the chat box, I want you to respond to any of the prompts on the slide that you see. And if I tell you what's going to happen after that, then you'll see how this works. After that, you don't need to reply to anybody else's comment or put a like on anybody else's comment at this stage. So it's just 2 minutes of you writing your responses, your immediate responses, into the chat box. If there's a particular talk that you were commenting on, you might want to just mention that by saying who the presenter was, or giving a one-word kind of indication of which project it was. After those 2 minutes, I'm going to leave you for another 2 minutes to go back through the chat, and that's the point at which you can add emojis and comments to other people's. And then after that, we're going to give the presenters a right to reply. So it's quite a structured way of doing it, which I hope means we get as much response as we can, and an opportunity to respond, and then a chance for the presenters to come back in, and at that point we can take a few questions if we'd like. So 2 minutes. First of all, I'm just going to open up the chat box. Remember, you don't need to reply to anybody, you don't need to comment on anybody else's, just put your instant reactions to what you've just encountered into the chat. Off you go. Great stuff. Again, if we can just pause for a moment, so if we can pause adding now, just to give those people that are finding the jumping around a bit tricky just a chance to scroll without any more things being added, that would be great. And as we do that, I'm just going to ask presenters, is there anyone amongst you that would like to come in and pick up on anything from that chat box that struck you? And it may be connecting your presentation to somebody else's, it may be wanting to respond to a particular comment, but if you go with a hands up here, we can just get a little bit of a conversation going before coffee. So any presenters, and if not, we'll hand over to comments and questions from the rest of the audience. But I always like to give presenters an opportunity to respond. So I'll just give a moment for that. Just see if there's anybody from the presenters that wanted to say anything. Ola, come in.
It's just I think Catherine Pestano wrote a comment about, like this peer stuff on Black students' experience, but field staff can also be proactive, came across as a great practice elsewhere. What I want to, I'm not responding to Catherine, but it resonated with me, is that Ola Omotosho, who is one of the student researchers, is a student who I tutored 2 years ago on E119. So the circle for me in this aspect is that I am now working with a student, but the student is now more in a power, hopefully in a power that they've been empowered to work as a student researcher on the program, that most likely this wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had a scholarship. That opportunity wouldn't be there. And that's one of the reasons why I think the project we're working on is about that empowerment of students.
Thanks, Ola. Yeah, that's really exciting, isn't it, to hear that you had a student in level 1 that then came back and did scholarship in level 3. That's just, that's the dream, isn't it, really? So, and there's a lot of work going on in EK 313 involving students as researchers as well, which is exciting too. I can't see any more hands up from presenters, so I wonder if we want to go over to participants, others of you that are here, either something you've picked up from the chat or a question that you wanted to pose. Catherine.
Shall I put my camera on, or is that going to crash everybody?
No, that's fine. I think you're okay.
Okay. Yeah, so I was an NTFS reviewer, National Teaching Fellowship reviewer last year, and I came across an amazing project. Didn't win, of course, but it was showing, how very impactful it is to have a Black role model as a tutor, and also for that tutor broke down the barrier of the institution understanding the students and their lived experience of oppression and the disproportionate impact that was referred to in the presentation of life difficulties on them because of other structural oppressions. And it was just a beautiful relational way of leading, mentoring, and opening up discussions, which I think the peer stuff is amazing, but also people don't always know and benefit from somebody an insider in the power relationship, embracing them and holding them. And he had incredible results. And I just want to say that we need more Black staff. That's an area for the institution needs to address that. So there is that role modeling so that people can fully step into possibility. So that's my bit. There you go.
No, that's really helpful, Catherine. And it's interesting. We were chatting with someone from FBS in our own staff tutor meeting the other day about some work they've done there to diversify the associate lecturer community in that faculty, and thinking about how we could pick that up in our faculty as well. And I think you're right. If we want students to have those role models, we have a massive responsibility, don't we, to diversify our workforce and make sure that that's possible. So thanks for that. Great stuff. Anybody else want to come in and comment or ask a question of a presenter? And again, presenters, feel free to do that yourselves, to jump in. Just looking for some hands up. Thought by closing the chat boxes in the presentations you'd be wanting to chat in the main room, but we're very quiet this morning. Maybe you've got that bar of chocolate that you're waiting to go and eat. Any other thoughts or comments from those presentations? Catherine? Your hand's gone back up. I wonder if that was intentional. No.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was, okay.
I was just laughing, saying, come on, people, somebody else got questions, I'm sure. So one of the things that struck me with the presentation about, well, a lot of them actually, is I would really love it to have it as part of the presentation, the wider context within which the research was taking place. So like when people dropped off in week 6 from doing the fantastic extra stuff in K102, was it? It would be really lovely to know, like, well, was that when COVID hit, or was something else going on in the world, or like was George Floyd this? So what's happening in the timeline? We're all part of the wider systems, and I just love that as a little part of the contextualizing introductions for all of the research, because I think it's part of how I receive the information. It's like who's presenting it, who did it, and what was going on in the world. And I just wonder about that, if the presenters have any thoughts about their own research in terms of wider processes, because obviously some of this might be quite old by the time it gets to being presented. Sorry if that's a bit rambling.
I just wonder if any of the presenters did want to come back on that idea of contextualizing, or whether you felt that you did do that. I don't know. Come back and any comments on that? Any people that have just presented?
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't listening properly.
That's fine. Don't worry. I think Jim, did your hand just go up and then down again?
I tried to, yeah. I don't know. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yeah.
I totally agree with that. I think it's excellent. It's very difficult. You got 15 minutes to, you got to get rid of some stuff. But I think I totally agree. I think there's more need for us to do that, is to contextualize and locate our scholarship in wider debates and conversations. For example, the current crisis in HE at the moment, with marking boycotts going on left, right, and centre, ongoing pay disputes, and so on and so forth. And wider political issues that are going on, have been going on. I do think that's a really good shout, that we must contextualise our scholarship, and I think that also speaks to some things that Ola and I were saying about trying to provoke change, and trying to find innovative ways to do that, and I personally struggle with that, but that's should be at the forefront of our minds in scholarship too.
Great stuff. Just had that lovely moment when you realise your keynote presenter has arrived. So that's always good. Welcome, Kathy. So thanks for that, Jim. I think that is important, isn't it? And it's one of the things quite often I'm sat in meetings and we get a number of kind of quantitative statistics presented to us about, when students drop out of modules or, what this particular awarding gap is. And there is that need. And I hope that our scholarship work is doing that, where we begin to contextualise those kinds of things and kind of dig deeper and look at what's going on in the bigger picture. So I think, but it's a really interesting point, Catherine, about kind of trying to contextualise in these presentations and how we might be able to do that. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. It is now that moment of the day where if you've got anything left in your goodie bag, you can use it as part of this coffee break time, which we're having now.